Okay, how do hormones affect bone growth? Okay, so there's several hormones that we need to talk about. So one of them is growth hormone. Okay, so when kids hit a growth spurt, okay, growth hormone stimulates bone growth at the epiphyseal plate. So it's going to cause us to get taller. Sex hormones, so estrogen, testosterone, they actually cause growth to occur during adolescence. Okay, so estrogen is more powerful. So girls grow faster, okay, but they stop growing sooner. Okay, so testosterone kind of builds up and takes a little bit longer to grow. Okay, now another thing is vitamin D. Okay, so vitamin D is going to be converted in your body to a hormone that's going to allow us to absorb more calcium in our intestines, and that's going to, you take more calcium out of the food, you're going to build more bone. Okay, now bone remodeling and homeostasis. Okay, so bone remodeling, so even though bone is made out of calcium, and we kind of think of it like concrete, that it's pretty hard, it's going to be there forever, it actually is remodeling and changing all the time. So we remodel our bone at a rate of up to 18% a year. So we're taking down old bone and building up new bone at the same time. Okay, now when we remodel, okay, that allows our bones to respond to stress. So if you change jobs and you're doing something now that you're going to be lifting heavy, I don't know, something, heavy trays every day, okay, your bones are going to develop more where you are using them. Okay, now we also can use bone remodeling to control the calcium levels in our blood. Okay, so remember when in the beginning we said that calcium could work as, or the bones could work as a calcium reservoir? So it's like a little place where we can store it. So if we need bone, we can break it down. Okay, so parathyroid hormone, okay, will increase the blood calcium level by making us break down more bone. Okay, if we need, if our blood calcium level is too high, we'll use calcitonin to break it down, or to put bone into, not to break it down. Okay, if our blood calcium level is too high, we will build up bone using calcitonin. Okay, so there's a big thing in your book about osteoporosis. It's on page 246. So osteoporosis is when your bones are weakened, and it's because you have decreased bone mass. So what happens is that your osteoclast activity becomes greater than your osteoblast activity. So you're building down bone faster, breaking down bone faster than you can build it. Usually after the age of 40 or 45, bone reabsorption exceeds absorption. Okay, so we're starting to break down bone faster than we're building it. So the risk factors are women, okay, because estrogen plays a big role in it. If you're white or Asian, okay, if you're really thin, like have a thin body frame, thin body type, if you have a family history of it, if you have early menopause, smoking, diet low in calcium, if you drink a lot of caffeine or alcohol, or you're very sedentary, you don't move a lot. Okay, so what can happen is it can lead to fractures, and then fractures lead to other complications. So one thing leads to another, and next thing you know, you're in deep doo-doo. Okay, so it can be treated with drugs. There are drugs out there that will help you increase your calcium levels. It can be treated with estrogen therapy, with hormones. It can also really be treated with lifestyle change. So it's important that when you're young, you do weight-bearing exercise so that your bones become strong when you're young. Calcium intake, you need to be drinking your milk, taking your calcium, your vitamin D throughout your life. Okay, now there's 206 bones of the skeleton. We are not going to learn all of them, but we're going to learn some big ones. So the first thing I want to tell you is that there's really two parts of the skeleton. So this blue part in the middle, so that's your skull, your back, your ribs. Okay, that's the axial skeleton. So that's the axis. That's where everything is. And then the things that are kind of like bone colored, that's considered your appendicular skeleton. Okay, so let's go through what we need to know. Okay, so the axial skeleton is the skull. The skull's made of the cranium and the facial bones. The hyoid bone is the bone under your chin, so it's not connected to the others. It's the only bone that doesn't articulate with any other bone. It actually, if you're strangled or hung, it breaks. So sometimes you hear it on those CSI TV shows. Okay, the vertebral column is the vertebrae is the vertebrae and the intervertebral discs, and then the rib cage are the ribs and the sternum. Okay, so let's talk about the skull. Okay, so in an adult, okay, it's composed of 8 bones. Okay, its function is to protect the brain, and in the bones are some spaces, and those spaces are called sinuses. Okay, so if we look at the bones of the face, okay, so the mandible is your jawbone. Okay, the maxilla is your upper jaw. Okay, zygomatic bones are these green ones. Those are your cheekbones. Okay, and the nasal bones are the bones that make up your face. So those are facial bones. Okay, and there's your hyoid bone. It's right underneath your chin. Okay, the other bones of your skull. Okay, the front one is your frontal bone. Okay, that's like your forehead. Over here by your ears is your temporal bone. Okay, so you guys know this is the first time I've taught it, so I guess we're just going to go with the bones that they suggest. Okay, now, the vertebrae. So the vertebral column is made up of a series of little bones. Okay, it gives us freedom of movement. Okay, so there's 33 vertebrae. Okay, so you should know how many fall into each place. Okay, so the ones in our neck are called cervical vertebrae. There are 7. Okay, and they kind of go like this. They kind of bend. The ones in our chest are called the thoracic vertebrae. There's 12 of them. You should know that there's 12. Okay, so if we name these, we call them T1, T2, T3. These what we call C1, C2, C3. Okay, the ones down here in our lower back, okay, those are called the lumbar, and there's 5 of those. Okay, our sacrum, I always call that our sit bone. Okay, so that's kind of like what we sit on. It has 5 vertebrae, but in the adult, those bones are actually fused together, so it looks like one big bone. Okay, and then we also have the coccyx, and the coccyx is the little tailbone. Let me see if I can. So it's a little tailbone down here. In between all of these, that's where we have the intervertebral discs. Okay. So this little part that sticks out, and you'll feel these on your back if you run your hand down your back. You can feel these protuberances, these things coming out the back, and those are called the spinous process. Okay, there's parts that stick off the side. Those are called the transverse process. Okay, so I guess I should make that clear. This is the posterior. Okay, and this is the anterior. Okay, now the rib cage. What you need to know about the rib cage. So the function of the rib cage is to protect the heart and the lungs. Okay, to keep that soft tissue safe. Okay, here's the vertebrae. Okay, and the vertebrae are actually going to articulate with the ribs. So we have 12 pairs of ribs, just like we have 12 pairs of, or 12 thoracic vertebrae. Okay, so the first 7 are called the true ribs, okay, because they come around, they attach to a piece of cartilage and attach to the sternum. Okay, 8, 9, 10 are called the false ribs because they attach to a piece of cartilage and then to another piece of cartilage before they attach to the sternum. Okay, and then 11 and 12 are floating ribs because they don't attach to the sternum. Okay, so these little yellow, blue things in here, that's the costal cartilage. So that's hyaline cartilage that's going to attach the ribs to the sternum. So this bone in the front, that's the breastbone. Okay, it's also known as the sternum. Okay, the top part of it, it has 3 regions. The top region is the manubrium, the middle region is the body, and then the bottom part is the xiphoid process.